Hello, everyone. I'm Cynthia Maywalt. Thank you for joining us for today's Portland Tableau user group. Today, we will be featuring our own Danny Steinmetz, recapping Tableau Conference 2022. Some of us got to go in person or virtual, so just sharing that side of things. And then also, we will have Kendra Allensbeck from Interworks show us user-centered, words. Oh my God, user-centered dashboard development. And she will be speaking better than I will. So just hold tight, thank you. That being said, I also forgot that this has animations in it, so just bear through while I click through these. Back. Surprise. So we've locked in every third Thursday at 1 p.m. for y'all. So please come back to our regularly scheduled channel. We have a few dates set up, and we'll be looking for content or community speakers. If anyone is interested, please feel free to reach out to us. I will have contact information for that in the next few slides. I just have these in different order. So bear with us. And then, yeah, speaking of Portland neighborhoods, we were talking about doing a possible in-person event. So if anyone is interested, please let us know. Taking advantage of the great weather, perhaps, and doing something outside. But would love to hear your thoughts about what y'all are interested in. Danny, I saw you hop off mute. Any thoughts?
Could you potentially share the form in the chat so people can access it?
I think I will. Yes, bear with me. Oh God, this is fun. Maybe I don't do this now.
We believe in you.
All right. While I'm in here, I might as well just copy this. And I think I just sent that to the host. Good job, me. Good job, me. Resending things. Okay. Yeah. Sent out a form to see collecting y'all's thoughts about what we want to do for an in-person event coming up, and as well just sending out that community page where we've been posting a few job boards, trying to share our resources within the Portland community, and yeah, get an opportunity to work with some awesome people on this call. So once again, that ideas for content, if y'all would like to be or might be interested in being a community spotlight, showcasing what you're doing at your work, would love to hear about cool and interesting things y'all are doing with Tableau. So send that out as well. And then we also have, I will send up another link out here. This is from the larger Tableau community groups. And they have a community booster coming up. Feel free to hop on the call. Just ways that we can, what am I trying to say? Excite, engage a little bit more in these calls. So if you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to join. And I guess with that, I'll check in with my panelists. Do y'all have, did I miss anything that we wanted to cover before I pass the mic to Danny? No, looking good. Okay. I will stop sharing. I'll let Danny take over, and I will throw myself on mute. So then y'all can listen to him. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Cynthia. All right. Is everyone seeing my
Yes, you're good.
my PowerPoint with the fancy? It should start yeah, capturing what I'm saying, which is always very distracting, but helpful for people, I know. Yeah, I'm just going to talk through some of the things I learned at Tableau conference this year. And I wanted to kind of make it a mix of what were some of the most exciting new developments that Tableau has put out there, like they do every year, but the other really cool stuff that they do where it's people from the community presenting. And I definitely had two favorite sessions. There was the Flurlage twins. I really enjoyed their presentation and learned a lot. And then the other presentation was the one that Kendra was going to give with our other friend Keith, but was unable to. So we are going to get one of the best presentations from TC, and with the excitement and vigor one would expect at TC itself. So get excited for that. So here are some of the main things that I found at Tableau conference. We'll dive into a few of these, and also feel free to reach out in the chat, and then, you know, someone else, one of our panelists will interrupt me and relay that question to me. But one of the biggest things is definitely Tableau Online is no longer Tableau Online. It's now Tableau Cloud. So there's a ton of really awesome, this is kind of something that Tableau has been moving towards for a while in promoting this. And, you know, with every past release, it seems like they have a new, all right, we're going to add this function in browser, but maybe not on desktop. So they've been really pushing that, and some other really cool stuff there. Next thing we're going to talk a bit more in depth about is going to be data stories, which is kind of Tableau's solution to natural language processing. And then there's the model builder, which is kind of Tableau's stepping into the data science realm and letting us use some more advanced calculations and different models so we can start to look towards the future. I'm very excited about the Tableau prep enhancements that they've made, primarily having having steps that can reference other rows of data. So multi-row calculations allow for a ton of awesome things like period over period calculations, or you can actually add rank to your data and start to utilize that way. You can also add unique IDs. So all of these are really, really cool things that may not seem that exciting at first, but kind of open up a whole new world of bringing Tableau prep from a lightweight ETL tool that can do some of the things to a pretty big dog in the ETL fight that's ready to take on some bigger responsibilities. Next, there are table extensions. The cool thing about table extensions is essentially they let you bring Python or R or Einstein discovery into your tables. So as you load them, you can start to utilize some of those things that your R or your Python wizards are able to do to your data directly from the source. And then finally, the image role feature is really cool, where it makes it a bit easier if you have a image URL, it makes it a bit easier to use that in Tableau itself. So that's really cool. And then my favorite takeaway for myself was the transparent shapes that I learned from the Flurlage twins. And in this time, I'm gonna briefly walk through kind of how to do it and ways to utilize it. But before I do that, I want to dive in a little bit more into the Tableau Cloud. So let's see, just go there. So it's all in browser. One of the really exciting things about it or updates is that you can have multiple sites. So you could have maybe an internal and an external facing site, or you could have an analytics site that's separate from your operations site. So that partitioning allows for a lot of opportunities and a lot of kind of branding opportunities as well. If you have multiple clients, you could potentially make different sites for them. There's admin insights, just a new and improved way of telling how people are using your instance of Tableau Cloud. The other really exciting thing is you can now toggle whether dashboards can be shared publicly. So if you have one dashboard that you want to be public facing, but the rest of your dashboards definitely need privacy, Tableau Cloud can now accommodate that. And then I have a little bit more. You can, on admin insights, that you can publish the data sources and dashboards on your Tableau content. Next, talking a little bit about Tableau data stories. So Tableau acquired Narrative Science, which was a pretty big player in the field. And so it's nice to know that this isn't something just being built from the ground up pretty early on. This is a pretty mature product, and it makes it so that it can kind of analyze all of your data, and you don't have to write out this report. As things change, it'll rerun this process, and it's very user-friendly, easy to read, and very quick. And then the next thing I was going to show was the transparent shapes and why they're cool. But before I do that, does anyone have any questions on anything that we've gone through?
I don't see anything in the chat or the QA. Danny, I think you're good.
Sweet. All right. I need to exit out. But for the transparent shapes, I'll first show kind of why they're cool. And the main reason that I found is you'll find sometimes in Tableau, when you click on something and it highlights, it might not highlight the right thing. It might highlight when you don't want it to. It'll just cause some weird user interactions that we might not want. So the most recent example that I've used in this is Interworks did our Spotify Wrapped, where we analyze all of our Spotify data from the past year. And you'll notice I have one sheet on here. This click on the doodle in the top left. That when I start to click through these, that'll stay highlighted, but the rest will change. And all that's going on here is I have this transparent shape on a bunch of images. There's a lot of weird stuff going on here. But this sheet is just a shape. And that shape is a custom one I did. That's just a transparent shape. If I change this to something like a square, even if I brought the opacity down all the way, when I go back to the sheet and I click on it, and this is a really slow dashboard, but it'll highlight in a way that we might not want it to, like this. So the transparent shape essentially lets us circumvent this. And the way that you do make transparent shapes and get them into Tableau is way easier than I thought. I read a lot of blog posts on it, and it seemed like it was impossible. But really, all you need is PowerPoint. And what you do is you insert a shape. So in this case, I'll just do a square. Then you go to shape format. And then shape fill, no fill, and then outline, no outline. And then once you select it, this is probably the hardest part, is actually clicking to select it. You save picture as, and then you want to go to your documents, my Tableau repository, shapes. And then you can see I've made a folder called transparent shapes, and I can just save it here. You can see the previous one I have showing is black, although we just saw it, it's not actually. But that's essentially all you need to do to add these transparent shapes. And they're really great for primarily if things are highlighting where you don't want them to. That's where they really shine, which I know sounds like it won't be that applicable, but really, if you ever have something like what we were looking at here, where there's a highlight going on that you don't want, even if you have that opacity turned all the way down, this is a really good workaround for that. So hopefully you found it useful. And yeah, if you get the chance to go to Tableau conference next year, it is a very good time. I enjoyed it. And they don't pay me to say that. Genuinely believe it. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danny. Really appreciate you sharing that and the tips and tricks and insights that you learned from there. So thank you. And for everybody on the call, I'm sure Danny would welcome any questions that y'all have about conference or anything about his presentation. So feel free to reach out. And with that, I'm going to pass the baton to Kendra. Kendra, you good to share?
Yes, let me get my screen up. Danny, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, the transparent shapes are super helpful. I've used it in other ways too, where I had a background image on a dashboard that had, it was like a table of contents basically for a workbook, and it had all of the list of the dashboards that were going to be in the workbook and this like custom font for the client. And so I used transparent shapes as buttons on top of that, so then we could link to it. So that's another use case too. So that's really neat. Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Kendra Allensbach. I'm an analytics consultant with Interworks, and I am here today to talk to you about driving user adoption, dashboard adoption with user-centered dashboard development. Almost messed up, Cynthia. It is a lot of words. That's why I just call it UCDD. And as Danny said, this was a talk at Tableau conference. I'm giving you an abbreviated version of the talk today, but it's also my first time that I'm actually getting to present this content because I built all of the content with my colleague Keith, but I didn't actually get to go to Tableau conference because I got COVID, and so you guys are getting my premiere presentation. So I hope that you enjoy it, and I'm excited to be here. So thanks for inviting me. I've been working with Tableau for about 6 years, and I've been with Interworks for about 3. And it's been such a great experience. I've gotten to work with a lot of different types of clients and different types of data, and it's been a very robust learning endeavor. A few things before we jump into the presentation today. Down in your Zoom interactions, you'll see options for chat, which we've already been using, as well as Q&A. If you want to ask any questions throughout the presentation, you can put them in the Q&A, and then the other panelists will see them and keep track of them for me to answer at the end of the presentation. But then feel free to continue to use the chat that we have been using for feedback and participation throughout. I may even ask you a few questions and to drop some emojis in the chat. So keep an eye out for that. So like I said, I've worked with Tableau a lot, and I've had a lot of different types of client experiences, but inevitably, I usually end up in some sort of situation like this one here, where I'm wondering if my dashboard was so great, why do they want to export it to Excel? And so I'm curious to hear from you all if you also resonate with this feeling and what type of emotions this evokes for you. For me, it is pretty much all those emojis that I have listed here. Feel free to drop an emoji in the chat. Yes, Sarah, exactly. You're just kind of like, are you kidding me? Danny, yes, I've seen you actually make that face before. Yes, these are all accurate. The sobbing, I usually try to not cry on the actual Zoom meeting and just shed my tears in private. But yes, it is a very frustrating experience where you're like, I've spent so much time building this dashboard, and it's beautiful and it's interactive. And why do they want to act like it's 1990, which was a great year because that's when I was born. But technology is advanced. We need to embrace Tableau for what it is. And so when this happens, there's an opportunity for us as Tableau developers to, instead of responding with frustration and all these, negative emotion emojis, to try to turn this into an opportunity to be curious and really understand our users. Because when this is happening and a dashboard isn't getting used the way that we originally intended, it's telling us something. It's telling us that our dashboard is not fully meeting the user's needs. And so today I want to talk to you about some key principles that will help transform and shift our mindset so that we can take a more user-centered approach throughout the entire dashboard development process. So these 3 principles that I'm going to talk through today are to talk about users first, which is start with the users, not with the data. Users during, so not just users first, but users throughout, throughout the entire development. And then users after, which is don't build it and forget it, but build it and nurture it. So like I said, this has the framework of our development cycle: users first, users during, and users after. And I'm curious to hear from you all, if you want to type in the chat, which phase of your current development do you find it hardest to connect with your users? For me, I'd say it's probably users during or users after. Yeah, Amy agrees with after. I think it's pretty common for us to try to at least get some input from our users at the beginning, but then, and we try to maybe ask for feedback throughout. Doesn't always happen because timelines get rushed, but users after is probably one of the largest opportunities that we have, and we're going to talk more about that as well. So thanks for answering and participating. Okay, so let's jump in with a client story. And our job as consultants, we work with all types of clients. And today's story is about our client, Johnson & Johnson. And I can't show the actual dashboard that they came to us with, but I can show you an example of one very similar to what it looked like. And you've probably seen a lot of dashboards like this before. It's a crosstab, might as well be an Excel spreadsheet, right? And they came to us and said, hey, our users aren't using this dashboard the way we expected or wanted them to. Can you help us revamp this dashboard? Okay, what's your first reaction as a Tableau developer when you see this dashboard? You're like, ugly. Let me make some charts and visuals and use Tableau's visualization tools to summarize this data and get the users what they want. At least that would be my first reaction. And several years ago, that's probably what I would have done. I would have just started analyzing the data. I would have found the story, and I would have built a dashboard that told that data story. However, now what I typically like to do is ask the users, what are you looking for out of this solution tool, right? And that's what we did with Johnson & Johnson. We said, hey, can we talk to the users of this dashboard to find out what it is that isn't meeting their needs? And they were pretty skeptical at first. They were like, we told you, we just need, a more exciting dashboard, something that's revamped. And we were like, okay, but we need a little bit more than that. And rather than taking it from the stakeholders, we wanted to hear it from the users themselves. And within one 30-minute meeting with 2 of their primary users, we gained valuable insights. We just observed them using the dashboard. We were curious about how they were using it. We watched them use Tableau, and then they were exporting the data and putting it in Excel, and then further manipulating the data there. And we said, tell us more. Why are you doing that? And so that gave us really key insights as to what their process was that the tool we were building needed to fit within, right? It wasn't just an isolated dashboard. It fit within a larger process and system. And so by having this conversation and taking this time up front, we gained these really key insights to fill the gap between the intended use of the dashboard and the actual user behavior. And so that leads us to our first principle that I mentioned before, which is start with users, not the data. A thought leader in the analytics product space, Brian O'Neill, says, if you want a human to use a thing, you should really talk to those humans first, which sounds so simple and duh, why wouldn't you do that? But we get so caught up in our work minds and our development mindset that we're just like, okay, I need to build this. I need to make it better. I need to, explore the data, et cetera. But when we pause and step back and truly understand where the users are coming from, we can create a product that truly meets the user's needs. At Interworks, our first step that we encourage all of our consultants to do when they're working with clients on projects like this is called understand, right? It's very similar to the design thinking approach of empathize. A lot of our clients come to us with an idea of a solution already in mind, and that's great. But if we don't step back and truly understand the problem that solution's trying to solve, we're inevitably going to start building something that may or may not meet the user's needs. And that's our job as consultants, to help our clients think less like Tableau developers and more like product managers, and really get in the minds of their users. And while this seems like it may take more time, it's time well spent, because the more time you spend up front getting this groundwork to help build a strong foundation for your development, the less time you're going to spend making changes in the end, and the less risk you'll have of the dashboard not getting used by your users when it's in production. Okay, that leads us into our second principle, which is in the development cycle, not just users first, but continuing to talk to our users throughout the development process. While it's important to make sure that we're understanding the problem statement, we want to continue to check back in with our users as we go to make sure that we're on the right track. And here's a couple of key tips to help us do that. The first is to determine your MVP. And no, I don't mean most valuable player, although I like to think that all my dashboards are the most valuable players of our Tableau server. I mean minimum viable product. And you've probably heard this term a lot when it comes to tech and software, and it can feel really intimidating and like a very serious thing. But all it really means is figuring out the most essential parts of your design that you want to include in your initial build. So if we take away all of the nice to haves and all of the, fancy trickery things for now, what is going to get our users from point A to point B most effectively? And what is something that we can build rapidly so we can start getting user feedback as soon as possible, right? We don't want to create an MVP that's so complex that we end up investing weeks of development time on something that's probably going to have to be reworked anyways. So what is the most essential parts that we need, and what can we build rapidly into our prototype? So a prototype is essentially it's something that is tangible. So it's taking your ideas out of your head and putting them into something that you can put in front of a test user to get their feedback. So it can look like a prototype in Tableau. It could look like a wireframe in a tool like FigJam or InVision. It could be as simple as a sketch on a piece of paper, just something that's taking ideas out of your head from everything you learned in the first stage of understanding your users, getting it in front of the users to get their reactions and answering the question of, am I on the right track? And that's where we get our user feedback. When I first started building dashboards, I was super perfectionist, wanting to have everything pixel perfect before I showed my users, because I wanted them to have trust in me and in my experience and my capabilities. But 99% of the time, I would build something pixel perfect, put it in front of my users, and they would have all these changes. And I would feel so defeated, like I wasted tons of time building something that I thought the users would love, but then it was too complicated or completely missed the mark of what they were needing. Nowadays, by asking for user feedback throughout the development and showing them works in progress instead of works of perfection, I'm able to better hone my development and my dashboard and answer that question of, am I on the right track, over and over again. So by the time I get to a more pixel perfect state, I'm more confident in what I'm putting in front of the users, that it's going to meet their needs. So that takes us back to our Johnson & Johnson example. After we learned what the users were trying to do, we realized, okay, they need something that is more dynamic than what they previously had, because they were putting it in Excel and further filtering and sorting. And so we went and we built a rough prototype to put in front of users for testing. And this is what it looked like. We put a filter pane on the left with dynamic sort options on the right. We were super excited about it. It included the features that the users were looking for, and we put it in front of those same users that we interviewed at the beginning. And thank goodness we did, because we missed something really important, which was that when our key user opened up the dashboard on her computer, this is what she saw, which was just the highlighted bright part of the screen, because everything in the dark gray was not rendering. It got cut off because her screen had a different resolution than the one that we had developed in. And so she looked at the dashboard. She's like, yeah, it's great. Like, I like the filters on the side. It loads faster, but like, I still can't sort anything. And we were like, the sort is there, just scroll over to the right. But we realized if we were going to have to tell this one user to scroll over to the right for the filter or for the sort options, we were probably going to have to end up telling all 100 users plus that they were going to have to sort. And that's valuable time when we could just change the design to make it more intuitive for the user without having to provide extra training and explanation. And so that's what we ended up doing. We went back to the drawing board with the additional user feedback we got from this testing session to say, okay, let's iterate on our prototype and change the design of the dashboard. And that leads to a bonus thought, which is don't change the user, change the design. So like I said, it would have been very easy to teach this one test user how to scroll, and she probably would have been like, oh, okay, there it is. But if you think of the time she would have spent scrolling, the time that we took to inform her of this feature, as well as the time that it would have taken for all the other users, it would have been probably a loss in the end. So instead, we decided to change the design to be more intuitive for the user. And that's really the heart of user-centered dashboard design. Okay, so we are moving through the development process and we're heading into users after. So even with a thorough development experience, our collaboration with users doesn't end once the dashboard is published into production. Our third principle of user-centered dashboard development is don't build it and forget it, but build it and nurture it. If we truly want to shift the mindset of how we approach dashboard development, we need to think of our dashboards as products with ongoing life cycles that should be improved upon over time. So if you think of apps on your phone, your iPhone, even Tableau, we have multiple versions. They're being improved upon over time, getting feedback from the users and improving. And our dashboard should really be treated the same. And just like all of you said at the beginning, when I asked what phase you struggle to connect with your users the most, this is probably one of the areas where analytics teams most struggle, but also therefore have the most opportunity to transform the way that you think about your dashboards, to shift out of this developer mindset and into that of a product manager. So instead of checking a box that says done when your dashboard's published, we need to provide a way of continuing an ongoing conversation with our users to encourage them to collaborate with us on the dashboard's full life cycle. Our businesses are constantly changing. KPIs change, metrics change, the data that we have available changes, and our dashboards need to evolve with the state of the business. So one way that you can do this is to provide a mechanism for your users to provide ongoing feedback so that you can better track, analyze, and act on their input and ultimately create robust product life cycles for your dashboards. At Interworks, one way that we are doing this right now is by providing a dashboard feedback collector within our Curator tool. So if you're familiar with Curator or not familiar, it is an embedded analytics platform sold by Interworks that allows your dashboards to be in a beautiful branded platform specific for your business. And users can interact with the dashboards just like they would in Tableau Server, but with some additional benefits. And one of those is this dashboard feedback collector. So it is a form that pops out next to the dashboard where users can type in what they're feeling or thinking about the dashboard, whether positive or negative. And then that data goes to the analytics team so that they can evaluate it to make improvements to their dashboards. And we're working to evolve that feature to add in natural language processing on the feedback and create an analytics layer to help analytics teams then analyze that feedback and prioritize how it should be acted upon. So we're super excited about this. It's actually in development right now. And if it's something that you are interested in or passionate about and want to be a part of the ideation to help us get user feedback on the development of this feature, definitely reach out to us. I have my email at the end of the presentation because we're looking for our user feedback to help us inform the feedback collector, just like we do on our dashboards. I would say that this post-production user feedback is probably one of the messier parts of a dashboard's life cycle. Dashboard feedback can come in all shapes and forms. People are slacking you, you're in person, they're coming to your desk, interrupting you while you're working. And so having a mechanism like the feedback collector, or even a more homegrown solution like using Google Forms or even a Jira widget, can really aid in the process of making sure that your users still feel valued in the post-production space, the same way that we valued their input throughout the entire development. We want them to know that we are here for them, we support them, and we're continuing to listen to them so that we can evolve the solutions and tools that they're using on a daily basis. Because when all said and done, they're people just like us who are looking for ways to make their jobs easier, right? And our job is to help them. And so we really want it to feel like a very strong collaborative partnership between our development teams and our users. Okay, so you're probably wondering what happened with that Johnson & Johnson dashboard. Well, after further testing and prototypes and really honing in on what they were looking for, we realized that most everything about their initial dashboard had a lot of the key elements they needed. It just wasn't executed super well. And so we decided that despite our initial, years ago inclinations of wanting to build charts and visuals, we decided to go with a cross-tab design for this dashboard, but we wanted to really elevate the user experience to make it very fluid and provide that additional sorting and filtering they needed so they could avoid the whole export to Excel step. And so what we ended up doing was creating a dashboard, which I'm going to show you examples here. Again, they're not the exact client examples because we can't share those. So it's anonymized data. But you can see here that we created a dynamic filter menu on the left with an accordion style pop-out filter that displays the selections that the user makes and allows them to dynamically add or remove columns to their crosstab. So very fluid, very much like a web interface user experience. We also moved the sort that was originally, if you remember, on the right side of the screen and cut off on some of the user's views. We moved that to the bottom left and added a dynamic element there too to only show options that were available based on what they chose to include. This is a very slick dashboard. I cannot take credit for it. I did not build it. The first time I saw this, I was like, are you sure that's Tableau? Because it's one of the most impressive dashboard experiences that I've ever seen, especially when it comes to crosstabs. But that being said, it's very complex. There's a lot that is going on behind the scenes. And while we made the decision based on our user feedback to invest this time up front, I wouldn't say that that's always going to be the answer. But in this case, we listened to our users and this was exactly what they needed. And so that's where we invested the time in order to have a superior user experience. If you're curious as to how this dashboard's built, like I was when I first saw it, you can scan here. I also have the link, which I will, oh, I closed it. Let me find it after this. But scan the QR code. It's a blog by our colleague Linus. Oh wait, you know what? I do have it somewhere. Hold on one second. I saved it. Okay, found it. Slacked it to myself earlier because I knew I was going to need it. So yes, I just dropped it in the chat. And yes, it's a very complex build experience, but it really created a super smooth experience for the user, which is exactly what they needed. And Johnson & Johnson was super pleased. Users are using this dashboard and they've continued to re-engage with us on other dashboards that they're hoping to improve and build by using user-centered dashboard development approach. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground today. So let's do a quick recap of our 3 principles. The first one, start with users, not the data. If you want people to use your dashboards, involve them in the development process, talk to users about their needs, understand their workflows and frustrations, and spend time exploring the problem space with them before you jump into solution mode. The second principle, not just users first, users throughout. Show them works in progress instead of waiting for works of perfection. Get feedback throughout your development process and testing as you go to validate if you're heading in the right direction. And then the third principle, don't build it and forget it, but build it and nurture it. So finding ways to collect feedback from users as they start using the tool in production can help you understand how to iterate and define what your next MVP should be for the future versions of your dashboard. I hope that this presentation resonated with you. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please connect with us and check out our InnerWorks blog. The link that I shared for the specific dashboard is just one of the examples of the plethora of content that we have around Tableau. You can also reach out to me. My email's on the screen here. Let me change my color. And if you want to reach out to Keith, he is the one who was on the Johnson & Johnson project. So if you have questions specifically around that dashboard, you can reach out to him or the author of the blog, Linus. And if you're so pumped about user-centered dashboard development and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to spend 8 hours with Kendra learning more about this so that my whole team can learn this concept, you're in luck, because I've developed an 8-hour workshop centered around teaching you user-centered dashboard development from start to finish. It's super fun. We learn a lot. We have activities and games, and I'd love to talk to you about it. So if that sounds of interest to you or your team, definitely reach out to me. And yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Do we have any questions from the group?
Kendra,
Go ahead.
Well, I was
Go
going
for
to
it.
say, there's a question in the Q&A about getting the copy of the slides.
Can we get a copy of the slides? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't see why not.
We also, this is recorded, and so this will be posted on YouTube, and we'll send out the link to that afterwards. So it'd be a good place to get at least see the slides again. Yeah, go ahead and let's plan on seeing the recording. But Barry, if you do want to shoot me an email, if there's a specific slide or concept that you're looking for a memory jog on, just let me know in an email, and I can follow up with you on that. But yeah, thanks for a link for the 8-hour workshop for details. We are still working. It's getting ready. It actually hasn't been launched yet. I'm giving you guys a sneak preview. It's being launched in, I think, 2 weeks via a blog on the website. So Keith, if you want to go ahead and email me, I'll put my email in the chat as well. Shoot me an email and I'll make sure that I send you the link to the blog post promoting the workshop as soon as it's available, but hasn't technically been launched yet. Don't tell my marketing team that I'm talking about it yet. But yeah, we're super excited about it and hope to continue to build on this momentum.
Sounds great. Kendra, thank you so much for coming in. We really
thanks for having me.
This was really awesome. We have a few minutes left for any other Q&A if folks have out there for the general Tableau community. But if not, we could probably end a little bit early and give y'all some time back. Once again, if you scroll up in the chat, or I guess I can place them back down at the bottom, links for the community page once again, and then our
I just resent the form.
In person.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you just resent it for me. Thank you. I appreciate it. I was like trying to do it on the side. So I guess that's it. Thank y'all again. And we will see you on July 21st. Same time. All right.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.